Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy, and I'm glad you're visiting my channel. Here we share new confessions every day.
They say secrets rot slower when buried deep. But the day mine surfaced, it exploded like a landmine. It was the middle of October. One of those moody, burnt orange afternoons in Portland, Oregon. The sky looked bruised, the leaves on the sidewalk were wet and clinging to my boots like regrets. I had just come back from my morning run, earbuds still dangling around my neck, when I walked in to find my mother sitting at the kitchen table, with a man I'd never seen before. He was wearing a tailored charcoal suit, his hands folded on a leather briefcase. My mother, Verona, looked strange. Not sad. Not angry. Just prepared. Like she was about to deliver a speech she'd rehearsed in the mirror too many times. "Sit down, Fallon," she said. Not sweetheart, not Folly, like she used to call me when she wanted something. Just Fallon. That was the first red flag. But I sat anyway. Verona didn't waste time. "This is Mr. Halbert. He's the family attorney. He's here on behalf of your grandfather's estate." My grandfather. Silas Whitmore. A grizzled, oil-rich rancher from Wyoming who could make a man cry just by clearing his throat. He never showed affection, not to me, not to anyone, but he once slipped me an envelope of cash for my 16th birthday and said, "Don't spend it all on books. Go wreak a little havoc." I loved him for that. So when Mr. Halbert cleared his throat and said, "We're here to discuss the matter of inheritance," I didn't flinch. I assumed it was a formality. A line in a will. A check. A dusty saddle, maybe. But then Verona exhaled through her nose, sharp and slow. I saw the way her knuckles widened around her coffee mug. "You're not in the will," she said. Just like that. No cushion. No warning. "You were never meant to be." I laughed. It was reflex, nervous, like a bad actress flubbing a line. "Wait, what?" "You're not in the will," she repeated. "Because you're not his granddaughter. And you're not my biological daughter either." I froze. My vision narrowed, like tunnel lights blinking out. "Stop joking," I said. "This isn't funny, Verona." "I'm not joking." She said it with the finality of a judge slamming a gavel. "You were adopted. Privately. No one outside this house ever knew. We kept it quiet. I was young. I had a miscarriage. Your father, he wanted a baby. We paid for a closed adoption in Utah. You were 3 months old when we brought you home." I stared at her. At her icy calm. At her pristine, cream-colored blouse that didn't wrinkle even while delivering a wrecking ball. I wanted to scream. To cry. But I couldn't do either. My brain scrambled to fill the silence with logic, with memories. Every birthday party. Every scraped knee. Every late-night call from college. "You raised me like I was yours," I said. "You loved me like I was yours." "No," she said, her voice going flat. "I tolerated you. Because your father insisted. Because it made him happy." There it was. The second detonation. I looked at Mr. Halbert. He was still, professional, detached, like this was just another Tuesday. "So that's it," I said. My voice cracked. "You call me into the kitchen and erase 23 years like they were a typo." "There's nothing more to say," Verona said, standing up. "You're not part of the estate. And frankly, Fallon, I think it's time you stop pretending you're part of this family." I sat frozen for what felt like hours after she left. The clock ticked loud. Mr. Halbert packed up his briefcase and left without a word. In that moment, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stood up, walked to my bedroom, and started packing. I didn't take much, just what fit in a duffel bag. I left the photos, the trophies, the letters. I didn't want anything that had their fingerprints on it. I stepped out into the rain without saying goodbye. From that moment on, I was no one's daughter. But I would become someone they'd never forget. Portland was still wet the night I left, like the city itself was weeping for me. I walked 20 blocks before realizing I had nowhere to go. My phone was at 12%, and the only money I had was $87 and a wrinkled Starbucks gift card. I thought about calling my ex, Jace, but he'd ghosted me after I turned down his "be my stay-at-home muse" proposal. No way in hell. I found a 24-hour diner in East Burnside, ordered black coffee, and nursed it until my phone finally died. I used their Wi-Fi to apply for jobs I wasn't qualified for, Googled emergency housing near me, and ignored the stabbing feeling in my chest that said, "You've lost everything." But I hadn't. Not yet. The real loss doesn't come when they cut you out. It comes when you start to believe them. And I refused. 3 weeks later, I was living out of a shared basement with two girls I found on Reddit, a barista named Della and a girl named VYX who bred exotic spiders in jars. I slept on an air mattress wedged between a guitar amp and a laundry machine that sounded like it was possessed. I got a job at a late-night copy shop. Minimum wage. Shift meals were day-old donuts and instant ramen. Most days I smelled like toner and sweat. But I showed up every day, took extra shifts, and stayed late to teach myself everything about marketing, digital content, and writing. There was no backup plan. No trust fund. No miraculous DNA test that made it all okay. Just grit. And hunger. And spite. One night at the shop. It was 2:14 a.m. when a client came in, mid-30s, crisp blazer, frazzled energy. He was printing out a last-minute pitch deck and cursing under his breath. I fixed a formatting issue for him in under 5 minutes. He blinked at me like I'd performed a miracle. "You ever work in advertising?" he asked. "No," I said. "But I read their mistakes for fun." He grinned, asked for my name, and left his card. 2 months later, I was interning remotely at a boutique digital agency under that same man, Camden Price, founder of Price and Hollow. Unpaid, sure, but I didn't care. I was learning. I was moving. For the first time since that kitchen ambush, I felt a pulse under my skin again. I kept quiet about my past. Changed my last name on my resume to Fallon Ray. I let Whitmore rot with the rest of them. And while Verona was probably sipping Chardonnay at some estate meeting, bragging about her curated life and her curated lies, I was building something real. From nothing. Flashback, a memory I can't shake. I remember once, when I was 16, Verona came into my room without knocking. I was sketching logo designs for a school project, pages and pages of concepts, slogans, ideas. She stared at them, made a face, and said, "You know creativity doesn't pay bills, right? Don't waste your energy. You'll marry rich like I did." But I didn't marry rich. I got poor, fast. And I worked my way back from the basement, literally. Because unlike Verona, I didn't want a life that was bought. I wanted one that was earned. 2 years later, I was no longer Fallon Whitmore. And I wasn't some girl crashing on a basement floor anymore either. I was Fallon Ray, creative strategist at Arcadia Hive, one of the fastest growing boutique branding firms on the West Coast. We helped small brands look like giants. We taught nobodies how to tell stories that sold. And I had become very good at making people listen. My first big win came when I pitched a campaign for a regional skincare company. Everyone at the table expected me to play it safe, keywords, hashtags, pretty faces. Instead, I pitched imperfection. Real people. Acne scars. Wrinkles. Smiles that weren't symmetrical. Flawless is forgettable, I told the room. Let them remember you instead. It landed. The campaign went viral. Clients started requesting me by name. I didn't just survive the game, I was starting to run it. And that's when the wolves noticed. Enter Amelia Stone, VP of Strategy. Ivy League, born in Manhattan, probably cried the day Goop launched. She had smiled at me during my first week like I was a lost puppy, cute, disposable, beneath her. Now she saw me as competition. She wasn't wrong. It started small, snide comments in meetings, passive-aggressive edits to my decks, accidentally leaving me off important email chains. But I didn't bite. I watched. Learned. Adapted. You don't survive betrayal and homelessness only to be rattled by a woman who thinks Whole Foods is gritty. Then came the gala. Arcadia Hive was nominated for a National Branding Award. The ceremony was in LA. Black tie. VIP only. My first real taste of the world I used to only see through a screen. My dress was deep emerald, backless, thrifted but looked couture. Hair slicked. Eyes cold. I walked into that ballroom with the poise of a woman who had already lost everything, and therefore feared nothing. People noticed. Including someone I hadn't expected to see again. A man from the past. His name was River Halbert. Son of that Halbert, the family attorney who'd watched Verona disown me over a mug of coffee like it was another Tuesday. He was a few years older now, sharper jawline, new suit, same gray eyes. But this time, he recognized me. "Fallon?" he asked. I smiled. "Not anymore," I said. "It's Fallon Ray now." He blinked. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again. Most people who betray me don't." He winced. "Fair." Then he said something I didn't expect. I never agreed with what she did. Verona. I was just the messenger. But I've thought about it a lot since then. I raised a brow. "And what? You want forgiveness?" "No," he said, pausing. "I want to help you finish what you started." The offer. River wasn't just floating at the gala, he was now working as a consultant for an elite firm that advised old money brands on modern storytelling. He had influence. Contacts. Doors I hadn't knocked on yet. He offered me something unexpected, a partnership. He had a client, an exclusive jewelry house in New York, Isolde and Thorne, looking for a rebrand. They were run by legacy families. And one of them, a close friend of Verona Whitmore. My name wouldn't just land in the press. It would land in her world. He handed me the dossier. "Think about it," he said. "It's your move now." It took me 36 hours to say yes. Not because I doubted myself, but because I wanted to be ready. If I was going to walk back into their world, the world of legacy names and country club deals, of soft power and manicured cruelty, I needed to do it not as a guest, but as a threat. New York City. The skyline was different than I remembered, louder, bolder, merciless. I stepped off the private shuttle into the heart of Manhattan, clutching the Isolde and Thorne rebrand dossier like a loaded gun. River had set up the first meeting. The board was mostly men, plus 2 women, one sharp and silent, the other elegant and fake nice. All of them were old money, gray-haired charm hiding hungry eyes. I wore black. Structured. Minimalist. A warning and a statement all in one. They didn't know who I was. But they felt something. Like a tremor before an earthquake. The pitch. I didn't give them the usual market speak. I gave them story. Luxury isn't just about price, I said. It's about power. And power belongs to the ones who reclaim it. I showed them a vision that married their heritage with rebellion. Old world craftsmanship told through the lens of new world resilience. Each piece became a symbol, not of wealth, but of survival. Of rebirth. Their eyes lit up. I knew I had them. After the meeting, River caught up with me outside the building. "They're obsessed," he said. "Especially Marion Thorne. She called you a shark in velvet. That's a compliment in her world." I smiled. "I don't wear velvet." We walked to a cafe near Columbus Circle, and over espresso, he finally asked, "Why are you really doing this, Fallon?" I looked out the window at the chaos of New York, my reflection barely visible in the glass. "Because she thought I wouldn't survive," I said. "And now I'm the architect of her ruin." Later that week, the gala that changed everything. Isolde & Thorne was relaunching a limited collection, the Resurrection line. The event was high profile, art gallery meets cathedral level elite. I wasn't just attending. I was presenting. On stage. Mic'd. Front and center. As I stood backstage, smoothing the collar of my obsidian jumpsuit, River approached, eyes narrowed. "You're not going to believe who just arrived." I raised a brow. "Verona Whitmore," he said. "She's here." Marion invited her personally. My chest went still for a second. Not with fear. With focus. It was perfect. I had planned for this. The speech. When it was my time, I walked out with the kind of presence that made people hush mid-sentence. Verona was in the third row. Diamond earrings. Cold smile. Her glass of champagne froze halfway to her lips when she saw me. I didn't blink. "There's power," I said, "in the things that were once discarded. In the people who were told, you are not enough. In the daughters no one wanted, who now run the empire." Silence. Then applause. Thunderous. Verona didn't clap. But her mask cracked. And I drank that moment like it was vintage revenge. It happened on a Thursday. The sky over Manhattan was the color of steel, and I had just signed the biggest deal of my career, a 3-year creative partnership with Isolde & Thorne, now fully rebranded and buzzed about in every luxury magazine on the planet. People were calling me the face of the new elite. I smiled every time I heard it. Because I knew whose face that title used to belong to. The article that broke her. The feature was in Forbes Women. Title: From Forgotten to Fearless, Fallon Ray's Rise to Power. There it was, my story. Not just the campaign wins, the brand takeovers, the innovation. The truth. How I was disowned. How I rebuilt. How I created an empire out of a wound. I had debated with myself for days whether to let them include it. But then I thought of Verona. And I said yes. Back in Portland. I hadn't been home in over 3 years. But now, I was flying in, not to visit. To speak. I'd been invited as the keynote speaker at a major Women in Business summit. They didn't know my history here. To them, I was Fallon Ray, fearless, brilliant, untouchable. But one person in the audience knew exactly who I was. Verona sat in the back row, her posture too stiff, her expression frozen. I walked on stage like I owned the building. Because I did. Sometimes, you find out your life is built on someone else's lie, I said. And you get to decide, will it define you, or will you dismantle it? The applause started before I even stepped off stage. I didn't look for her. But I felt her eyes on me, small, bitter, burning. The final encounter. She approached me outside the venue, like a shadow peeling off a wall. Her voice was brittle when she said, "Fallon." I turned slowly. Calm. Powerful. Dressed in black and gold, the colors of war and royalty. She looked older. Smaller. And for the first time in my life, unsure. "I read the article," she said. "I didn't know you'd take it this far." I tilted my head. "You didn't think I'd survive at all?" She winced. "I made a mistake." I smiled, soft and lethal. "No. You made a choice. And so did I." She swallowed, looking like she wanted to say something else. Maybe an apology. Maybe a plea. But I didn't care anymore. I turned and walked away. Because her opinion of me no longer mattered. Only mine did.